I'd like to dedicate this film. It's the first part of a series of films I'm going to be doing to my children, Betsy, Bill, Peter, Dave and Ben, and all my grandchildren, and also to the 2-year-olds that I have taught, which have been quite a few over 15 years. So I think what I'm going to do is read some questions that I've drafted here and answer them the best I can. The first one is why 2-year-olds? A lot of people say, why 2-year-olds? I mean, what do 2-year-olds do? Or they kind of laugh. I don't think that people understand how special a 2-year-old is. The way I look at it, from birth to about 1.5, is a period of physical development. Sitting, standing, talking in some sounds. It's mainly a physical part of a child's development. As they reach 2, or even before, nothing is set in concrete, they begin to develop the spirit. And the spirit, to me, is the part that is so special and spiritual. And actually, most of the time I taught them just for myself, because they gave so much to me. But the way the spirit is made up of several things that I surrounded the program with. And one of them is love, and one is joy, and peace, and patience, and kindness, and goodness, faith, compassion, and spirit. And those are the components that 2-year-olds are developing, and how we built our program around them. I actually have a passion for that age group. I will go and sit in a park and watch children play, because they are so remarkable in their adventures and their problem-solving skills. I am constantly amazed at how well they do it. So I'm going to read a couple questions and answer some of them. I don't have my glasses on, so we'll do the best we can. The first one, and these are made out by some colleagues of mine that they thought would be kind of key questions for me to put in my video. You have been teaching for many years and are so familiar with the 2-year-old. What is important to you about the 2-year-old? And when are you planning, when you are planning your toddler program? And I think the key things, the whole idea of a toddler program is to develop the self. In order to develop the self, there has to be a separation of the caregiver, mom, dad, caregiver, grandparent, whoever is bringing the child. And that's a process in and of itself. The other is the ability to share. That's these are all learned skills. Expanding a child's attention span. And socially, they are learning how to get along in a group, how to make friends, how not to make friends. What else did I want to say on that? I'm also learning trust, and that is a very, very large issue. If they can trust the teachers, trust their parents, then they will be able to learn, because they'll be more relaxed. And the second one is, I have to get my glasses to read this because of that bright light. You've described what is important for 2-year-olds in the classroom, but now what have you nurtured? Now that you have nurtured 1,000 young children, can you tell us what especially interests you about the 2-year-old? I think it's the complexity of their personalities. That they are like, this is just like a sponge. It's like taking a sponge and presenting different activities to them, and they just soak it up. For one thing, in the program that I have, we have 4 different sections, stations we call them, and then lots of peripheral, like block area, doll area, and they get to choose. They get to choose what they want to do during a day. Oh, here comes my director.
Just making sure. It looks good.
Making sure. Of course, I can't see with that light is kind of blinds me, but yeah, it's okay. I mean, there's not much you can do. What kind of conversation can you have with a 2-year-old? I have a perfectly wonderful conversation. They don't even need to talk. A lot of them don't even have the words to talk. But if you use expression, what I do is I use a lot of expression on my face. If it's sad, I accentuate, I act it out. If I'm happy, not fake, but definitely so they can distinguish between different feelings. Anger, puzzlement. So I have actually conversations with them. At snack is a wonderful time. We talk about things. I pick a topic and we talk about it. Sometimes at the beginning I do most of the talking, but they learn some of the words, and eventually they all enter in. And actually you can have a conversation with them about what they do during their day, what happens at home, and you learn a lot. And the whole point of teaching this group of children is to learn them individually. I want to learn who they are so that I can adapt my program to who they are, because it's an individual program. And each child is so unique. It's like a fingerprint. It's just a unique person that has been created and should be treated that way. So it's a learning time for me, the conversations that I have with children, and it's a social time. And remember, we're teaching them how to get along in a group, how to be social. That's one of the big parts of being in a classroom, as opposed to, say, at home where you only have 1 or 2 children. There are a group of children, and they're learning to get along in a group. And school is different than home, as I explained to my parents. What type of things do you consider when setting up your classroom? That's really important. Everything is totally respectful to the child. The furniture is low, the tables are low, there's safety all the time, detergents and poisons, which we don't have in the classroom ever, but we might have a detergent is put up high. There is a backpack at the door of the classroom which has first aid materials in it, so that if we have to leave in a hurry, we've got it right by the door, we take it with us. Any child that has an allergy, there's a card in there, or if they have special medicines, it is in the emergency pack. I have spots in my eyes from the light, so hang on. Consistency from the physical environment to the schedule. When you have, and the parent orientation is the next. Parent orientation is absolutely key. In fact, I don't have a child in the classroom unless the parent has had some kind of conversation with me beforehand, because they need to understand the program. It's actually a complex program that the teachers are very scheduled. The children aren't. There are only a couple times where we have to set boundaries. One is at snack, when we require them to sit. They can either sit or go and look at a book if they don't want to sit down and have snack. And the other time is when their parents at the end to renew and make a reunion with the parents before it's time to go home and school is over. is a story time. So those are really the only boundaries that we have as far as a schedule. And what can parents do at home that makes it easier for them to separate at school? I think building trust with your child. If a parent is trustworthy of the school and of the teachers, she'll portray that. If she isn't, that also is portrayed, and the child can sense that something might be wrong. So try and pick a school that you like the atmosphere, like the teachers, you find them loving and compassionate and caring people. They will be towards your children. And then you'll feel comfortable as a parent and trust that your child will have a good experience. If you're anxious about the separation, your child will feel that. So it's really important for a parent to feel comfortable. I think that's the best word I can use. And separation is a process that we have several different steps. I can talk to that a little later. Describe your indoor classroom and tell how the environment benefits the children. Everything in the classroom has a reason. There's a reason for every single little detail in that classroom. And I'll kind of go around the room and describe it. When the children come in the morning, we open the door because we're ready. As teachers, we're prepared. We've taken a half an hour, 45 minutes to get ready for the children. We open the door and there is a greeter there. Stores are having greeters now too, which just kind of tickles me. But there is a greeter. She sits on a low chair with a low table next to her with her name tags on it. When the child comes in with her parent or caregiver, the child learns their name and picks out their name tag because it's low, their level, and will either have the choice of putting it on the front or on the back. And then we pin it on either the mom or the teacher. They also bring fruit from home. That's the home school connection, or raisins or carrots or some little appropriate snack, and put it in a basket to share. So they're learning how to share from home with the other children. So the table is low, facing a child eye to eye, not hovering over them. In fact, I pretty much crawl the whole day. I keep right down to their level. Rather than bending down, I'm on the floor. After that, they have cubby holes, which are appropriate in size also, and they can hang up their backpack. They have extra clothes and their coat and hat. And the whole process is a very slow process because remember, you're dealing with children who are adjusting to a major adjustment. So after putting their name tag on, of course we know their names, but it's just part of the slowing down process of coming in the door to help them adjust. They hang up their coat in the cubbies. And then there are blocks that are again displayed beautifully, orderly, and low. There is water table with a change of water toys in it each time we have a class session. Doll clothes, tea sets, lots of things in the doll corner. The art, again, is appropriate. We have an easel. The children aren't required to wear a smock. If they want to, they can, but we do encourage parents to dress them in play clothes. And also the paints are mixed with soap so that it's easy to get them off clothes. There's a diapering area. When we have that because I don't require them to be trained. That they can learn that at school by watching other children go to the potty. And low potties, low sink, a quiet corner, which is absolutely essential for those children that might want to finish taking a nap in the morning. They may not be a morning person. They can go over to the little corner. It's all cozy with a comforter and books. There's large and small manipulative toys so that they can develop those large and small muscles, and there are appropriate toys to help them develop that. Please describe your indoor, we did that. Please describe the outdoor area. The outdoor area is, again, probably more geared for large muscles. There is a ladder that they can walk on, an A-frame with a ladder across it. There's a wonderful playhouse where they can play dolls or cowboys and Indians or whatever, but it gives them sort of a little structure to go into. Wonderful sandbox with lots of toys, lots of music. We have music outside. Grassy area. A mat where they can roll around, again developing large muscles. And a swing and a dome for climbing. The swing is usually used for later, because what we're doing is teaching them how to push rather than us pushing them, because remember, the whole idea is for the child to do for themselves. So when they're able to do that, then we can provide the swings when they are able to learn how to pump. There's balls, and there's also, again, a quiet corner outside with Legos or small blocks, a farm, possibly a dairy, and a horse park. Something that they can go over there, read a book, and play quietly with 2 or 3 children. Because not every child likes to do the same thing at the same time. Here comes my director. He's going to turn. Maybe you should turn it off.
No, keep going. I don't want to disrupt you, disturb you.
Okay. The thing is that it's hard to see this.
Let me turn the light up.
No, it's the light makes my eyes blind. It puts dots in them. Let's see. How much structure do you think is important in the preschool? And how do you feel about free play versus group activities? The structure is really mainly with the teachers. The teachers have cards that they go from activity to activity from an adult level. The children, it's pretty free. The inside time, we do keep them inside for about a half an hour at the beginning, because if we didn't do that, they probably wouldn't do some of the inside.
Getty, how can adults or teachers help children interact with each other, such as sustained play, the Getty scenario?
The way we help them is to model the play. And again, getting down on their level, if they're at the tea table, for instance, we say, I love some tea. Ooh, that looks wonderful. And, oh, you have biscuits too. Oh, you're cooking. That's, oh boy, they're blueberry biscuits. Oh, well, and you're going to pick some? Okay, well, I'll wait until you pick the blueberries. When that scenario has started to take with a couple children, then we quietly leave, because they pick up the idea and go from there. The same with the block corner. If we're at the block corner and some children have some cars, I will bring out a street on a piece of cloth, and let's have all those cars go down to the store. Oh, which store? Oh, that's a good idea. Oh, they're going to the barber too? Oh, that's good. Oh, the doctor too? The idea, again, is to develop a vocabulary. So we're not only developing, because children learn through play. That's really the only way they learn. So the more modeling comes from a teacher, and it's all positive. There really doesn't have to be any negatives in the program, because the children are active, interested, and there's enough for them to do. There's a lot of variations. The same with the art. If they're getting stuck on a project, you might make some suggestions. Oh, here, I've got some feathers that might help in your collage. You want, or give them a handful of tissue paper and feathers and beads, large enough so they don't go down their throat. Obviously, we have a device that we put things through so that we know that they won't choke on anything. And that's, again, part of the safety, that you have to be constantly vigilant. So by modeling, we show the children. By the end of the year, actually adults can just step aside, watch what's going on, come in when needed. But by the time the end of the year comes around, they pretty much can create their own play.
What is the, what do you mean by sustained play?
Long time play, where it's
keeping it going.
keeping it going. I think it's just important, if you can, to help them. You can step back. If it seems to be kind of waning, you can, and it seems like they want to play some more, say in a dollhouse or on a train. For instance, we made a train with lots of cars and the cabooses in the back. We had, and tickets, everybody had a hat on, and everybody's going to different plays, lots of vocabulary again. There were a couple children that wanted to come in, so we just added cars, which is chairs. That kind of group play lasted quite a while, because it just got more and more imaginative as we went along, always including other children.
Do you ever model for children how to play, and what is the tea party scenario?
Well, that was what I was explaining about the modeling, that we actually sit down with the children, have, for instance, at the tea party, you have all the plates out.
I remember that from, growing up.
Yeah.
The tea
Cups.
party specifically is like a tray
Exactly.
full of different...
Yeah, and then we have fruit that is fake fruit with Velcro, so that you can cut up the fruit, actually with a knife, a wooden knife, doll of course. I think you've got to have the props. You know, in order to have the kind of play that it sustains, you want to have the props to go with it. Measuring cups, and you know, children don't have to have reality, because they can play, they can fantasize a muffin, and it can honestly be there, and we can all be chewing and, oh, this is so good, I've never tasted anything so good. Their imagination is wonderful. Now, this is also a good time to bring in the real and the fantasy, because at this age, I think they can learn, is that real or is that fantasy? And it's actually key, because one of the things that we're trying to do is develop children to be sensible, conscientious, grown-up adults. And an adult has to know the difference between a fantasy idea and a real idea. And so it begins with 2-year-olds, the distinction. Very, very important, I feel.
Getty, what do you do when you see 2 toddlers struggling over a toy?
What we do is we have sort of a process that we go through. Remember, the goal, again, is to make it a win-win situation. You don't want a victim and you don't want a bully. So in order to do that, for instance, the usual scenario is they're fighting over a toy. So you have one truck and 2 children. I come up to them, kneel down again, and sort of bring them into the fold, open my arms out so they come in, and I just kind of look at them with a frown, don't say anything. And usually they'll say, I want that toy, I got it. And I nod, okay, and I ask the other child, well, what is it that you want? Well, I want it too, he says. Okay, that's the problem. So I tell him, well, that's the problem. You have one toy and 2 children. Okay, that's the problem. Oh, now we have to learn how to solve it. Now what happens is, at this point, is I take the toy. I say, I'll hold the toy while we're solving this solution. because they can't focus if they have one child has a toy and the other one doesn't. The other one that doesn't have is focused on the toy. So I take the toy, and usually at the beginning, at this point, they have such a low, their attention span is so short that they just say, they give up and wander off and play with something else. So as time goes on and they have a longer attention span, I will say to them, now these are the solutions and you choose. Because again, you need to give the child the choice. They always should choose, but you have to give them the choices because they haven't a clue how to solve a problem of that nature, because they haven't probably been faced with it, maybe at home, but nobody setting out to do the different steps. So I'll say, well, one way you could do it is you could have the toy first, and when you're finished with it, you could go find Johnny and give the toy to him. That's one thing you could do. The other thing is we have two toys, so you could go find the other toy and bring that over to Johnny. See, that's developing friendship right there. So what would you like to do? What's the best solution for you two? And they actually will say, oh, okay, I'll play with it first, and then I'll give it to Johnny. So what happens now, and this is the key, is he will go off and play with the toy, and I will watch my watch, and in 2 minutes, I will come over to the child that has a toy and say, are you ready to give up the toy now? Because otherwise they'd forget about it. They wouldn't remember. Oh, okay, and usually with a 2-year-old, they don't play with anything very long. So I take him over to the child and say, well, Johnny, and I just motion. You don't have to use many words. He gives him the toy, and I look at the children and I say, that's a way of making friends. That's how we make friends. And we label that as much as possible. This is a way of making friends. So they get the idea of, oh, is that what you do? That's how you make friends. Now, adversely, the same thing happens if they are hitting somebody. I will say, you know, that is not a way of making friends. And with that kind of a voice, you know, it's kind of a, that's not a way of making friends. So they can learn the difference.
That's good. I have another question for you. How do you help a child who is hesitant to join in block play, but obviously would like to?
Yeah, that's difficult. But in school, at this lower age, they need to learn that everybody it's inclusive. So I will go over, if a child is watching the play, and sit next to the child watching. Not say too much, but kind of show him that I care about him. Show him I have compassion, that he wants to play. Kind of look like, do you want to play? I don't use the words, but I use the expression because I want them to learn body language in adults. It's really important. There's words in adults and there's body language. Body language, frankly, I think says more than words. So we'll look, and then I'll watch the play and see how I can integrate the child that is wanting to play into it. For instance, if they're setting up a building and they're making it tall, I will say, oh, wouldn't it be interesting? I wonder how wide you could make it. Let's get the tape measure. Oh, could you help me get the tape measure, and we'll measure how wide? So the little boy hasn't been included will go and get the tape measure, bring it over. Oh, great. Here, you hold one end. See, he's being integrated in, but with an idea that won't conflict with the children that are already doing the project. Sometimes they really want to play by themselves, and the child will have to, they probably at that point leave. So there's only so much you can do, but the beauty of 2-year-olds is they're so receptive to making friends. They want so much to make friends that they will go out of their way to learn the skills. And that's the important thing with 2s. When they get into 3s, they get into a little more of the dark side of personality. where they get jealous, they don't want to let somebody in, they call them names. A little more of that happens about 3 1/2. But at 2, when they're still fresh, 2 1/2, they will absorb these skills that you're teaching them. So at this point, when the child comes in with a tape measure and they're not only making a block structure long, they're making it wide, I'll say, great way to make friends, just very quietly, subliminally, and then I will back off and leave. Probably won't go too far away in case, you know, there's a change of heart. And because there are 4 teachers or 3 teachers, we can be stationed to help children solve these problems. Giving choices is a way of giving a child self-esteem. But a 2-year-old can't have a lot of choices. They have to take a couple choices and choose from them. So you give the choices appropriate to the age. Everything that we have in the room, the children can do for themselves. When they can practice with the scissors, and we have appropriate scissors. So all the self-help skills they can do for themselves, because the more a child does for himself, the less you have to do as an adult for him. And then also encourage children's responsibility of picking up toys, which we do at the end of playtime and at the end of the school time. And if they don't want to do it, I simply go over and hand them a toy and say, oh, here's one that you can put in the cupboard. And they do that. They may only put 1 in, but the idea is to, again, model that we do clean up. Another way to develop their personality is consistency. They really like consistency. In fact, the story, Goodnight Moon, let's see if I can find it. It's right here. Goodnight Moon, you could probably read over and over and over and over again. But the interesting thing about Goodnight Moon is you can point out different parts to each picture. Like, oh, can you find the map on this picture, or the moon and the stars? Where's the mouse? Can you find the mouse? There he is. And the mouse is in a different place in each picture. The map, and also the comb and the brush denoting, and mush or cereal denoting a home kind of atmosphere. And this is the, oh, Bill's got a phone call. I'm going to put it on hold. No? Okay. Bye. Okay. Cord. Okay. Also, the rabbit is one of Margaret Wise Brown's other stories, Runaway Bunny, which she's entered into this. And the knitting is also kind of a cozy. There's the mouse in a different place. Playful kittens, bring in, and pairs. You can talk about pairs of mittens. There's a cow jumping over the moon. And there's the Runaway Bunny story. You can read that and show how she's incorporated that into it. It's a wonderful book. It's just good night moon, good night cow jumping over the moon. And there it is at nighttime. So that's one of the books and The Very Hungry Caterpillar, a brown bear, that you could probably read all year round, because consistency is how they learn. Whether it be in the schedule, mainly in the schedule. Our schedule is, they know what to expect. Even children that have come back, the siblings that are older, 6, 7, 8, they know the schedule. They remember that there is a consistent schedule. Positive reinforcement of independence. I would say all the comments we make are positive. If they're doing something, say a piece of art, we'll say, I like the colors that you use, the two blue and green that you use next to each other. Or, what a wonderful shape, that looks like this banana over there in the fruit basket. Identify one specific thing about the picture rather than that's such a good picture, or, well, what is it? Or, which denotes to a child that it may not be satisfactory. And that also develops confidence in a child. That you are confident that he can be an artist, a builder, an author, that he has those abilities in him, as we all do. They just have to be brought out in us. Values, I think, need to be reinforced more and more in today's world. The values of the spirit that I talked about at the beginning, the compassion for people. When a child is crying, for instance, because they've hurt themselves, and children come over to see what's going on, I'll say, yeah, he's really hurting. Look, he hurt himself. And they just sort of stand there. What I'm developing, or helping them develop, is compassion. That we want to be there for people when they hurt, in a very kind, gentle way. So we'll say, is there anything that we can do to comfort you? Would you like a hug? Would you like us to go away? Would you like us to sit here? Again, the choice of him in control of his own emotions. And sometimes they'll say, I don't want, could you go away? That's fine. Or, I need a hug. Or, I want to be with my friend. So we'll take him over and say, you know, Jamie, Joey wants to be with you. And because you're a friend. So the honesty, being honest about something, being gentle, kindness, and love, and peaceful. If there's a peaceful environment, which is a fabulous value, that's the way we all learn. I learn that way, and children do too. The other one is joy. And I think if we laugh, I try and laugh, just laugh a lot at the funny, and there are some really funny things that go on. Not at the children, but laugh in joy. Flying kites, making kites with strings on them to fly outside, and they fall to the ground, and we all just laugh. That's the funniest thing. Oh, God. And then we try it again. Or water is a wonderful way. Sliding down the slide, when a child accomplishes something for the first time. So joy is essential for the spirit in order to cope with some of the things that aren't so joyful. So it's that balance of values that we are trying to teach through just being there ourselves. And believe me, they teach me sometimes more than I teach them. They teach me to stop and look at something, like a bird up above that I've forgotten all about. Or there's a worm on the ground, and look at, he's all stretched out. That's right. Lots of things that in an adult's life, because it gets so complex, they get missed. The thing that I want my parents to walk away from the program is that their child is wonderful. Wonderful. That they are just perfect just the way they are. And If they can come away that their child is magical, that's good. Because then they'll treat that child really well. And that the parent is doing a great job. It's hard. Very hard work. And if they come away, speaking of that, I had a parent call me, I don't know, probably 5 years later. And she said, Getty, I just want you to know that your Getty Experience worked on Matthew. And I said, how so? And she said, well, they were out in the playground and somebody hit Matthew, and Matthew looked at him and said, that's not a way of making friends. And the little boy backed off. This is 5 years later, or actually more than that, because he went through 3s and 4s, so it's quite a 5, 6, he probably was about 7 years old. So those kinds of values, how to make friends, how to be part of a group, and still have your autonomy and independence, how to develop the self in a positive way, and how to have a relationship with a structured situation such as a school, teachers, and how to be joyful. It's absolutely essential. And what makes me come back year after year? I have the most ideal job. It's absolutely wonderful. Every time I go and teach, it's a joyful experience to me. And every single time I learn something from the children. And I learn that the spirit is unbelievable. Unbelievable. It just can soar if treated right. Some books that I have in my collection, I have actually a children's books collection of really fine literature, because I think it's so important for children to have really good artwork in their books, and also a good story. But this is an old book. This is the great big fire engine, and it was 1950. This is a 1950 book, and I really like this because of the pictures. And of course, boys in nursery school, I call it nursery school rather than preschool, because it is school. It's not preschool, before school. Nursery school is school, but it's for small children. Anyway, this is just a wonderful book on, see, there they are, kind of old-fashioned, but on fire engines. And of course, here's the Dalmatian right there, and all the firemen. And you could incorporate that with taking children to the firehouse. And then, what else do I have here? This is a wonderful book about a 4-year-old who tells you that she's no longer a baby, and she no longer says no all the time. When I was little, I cried a lot, and I used the word no. And you can say no. So it shows children the growth that happens between 2 and 4. It's just a wonderful story with great colorful pictures. When I was little, I went to Mommy and Me, which is like a little nursery school. Now I go to nursery school and I have teachers and cubbies and nap time and secrets. I guess Mommy and Me is just for the moms. See, with the moms. And there they are taking a rest. When I was little, I made up words like skip-a-doo, loo. Now I make up songs. It's delightful. It's a wonderful book. And this book is all the places to love. And it's a wonderful story of a baby born into a family. One day I was born, my grandmother wrapped me in a blanket made of wool of her sheep. And it shows how a family adjusts to a brand new baby and how all the family members take part in the adjustment. But look, just look at these wonderful pictures. The grandmother writes a note to the older sister, I love you, Ellie. And she puts it on a piece of paper with a stick and floats it so that on the other end, Ellie, who is probably about 5, finds it. So it shows all the support that a family, there's a big brother helping bring up a chair for the mom. And the grandpa talking to the little boy, and he's saying, today we wait. Let's see if I can do this without. Today we wait. Him sitting on a wooden slat chair and me on the hay. Until much later, my grandmother holds up a small bundle in the open window, wrapped in a blanket made from wool of her sheep, and my grandfather cries because it's another generation, and my grandfather cries. Wonderful. And I like to pick books that have really good artwork. I think we owe it to our children. And also colorful. The Button Book is a wonderful book. I have a button box, and I suspect that most people do. And this tells the story of different buttons. These are the seashell, and these are the wooden buttons from trees. And you can bring out your button box and show the children and try and match, which is the beginning of reading. Try and get 2 buttons, one from your button box and one from the button box book to match. And that's the beginning of learning words. It's just a wonderful story, again, of a grandmother connecting all the buttons, all the different buttons. The button box. And this...
Where's Goodnight Moon?
I know. Who Said Red? This is for younger children, but it's just a wonderful story about colors. Did you say blue? No, I said red. Well, hello, yellow, bright and mellow. Rhyming, which is fun. Slickery yellow, sunshine yellow. There they are, the yellow slicker, going to school. Lemonade and daisy yellow. And look at the lace, the doily. I mean, these are the little details that you want to point out because it's the beginning of reading. It gets children interested in books. Did you say yellow? Oh no, I said red. Not purple, not brown or pink, but not orange or black or white, I think. Tell me again, what did you say? And at this point you can say to the children, what did he say? In other words, you're saying, what's next? What's going to happen next? So the anticipation of reading becomes fun because they want to know what's happening. Okay, what's going to happen next? Oh, wrong page. Did you say red? Yes, I said red. And they'll get it right because they've been listening to the story and it's all about red. So they'll feel good about themselves. This is about Sophie and Aunt Pearl, and it is a wonderful book of pictures about how the little girl fantasizes with Aunt Pearl. It was such a pleasant day. They decided to take a roundabout route. See where they are. Fantasy. Again, the difference between fantasy and real. They're up in the sky. Look, said the kids. Look what's up there. That's weird. They ventured down on Main Street, and Auntie Pearl, being very fond of hats, insisted on a bit of window shopping. They stopped outside Timeless Toppers, which is on the 2nd floor over the bookstore. Quite exhausted, they stopped for ice cream. Sophie had a bubblegum cone, and Aunt Pearl had a large chocolate sundae. This is joy. On the way home, Sophie said, Auntie, do Mommy and Daddy know you can fly? Oh, I told them once, her great aunt answered, but they didn't pay any attention to me. Well, that's funny, said Sophie. He didn't pay any attention when I told him either. Well, just as well, Auntie replied. And they are over a cemetery. And when they got home, no one had even noticed that they were gone. Everybody's going about their daily, but it didn't matter because it was something special between Sophie and Auntie. And then there's Wonderful Goodnight Moon, which is a classic along with Brown Bear, Brown Bear. I don't have those books with me, but The Runaway Bunny, Hungry Caterpillar. But this is a classic because it has so much in it for younger children and older. In the great green room, there was a telephone and a red balloon. Find the red balloon? And a picture of, I wonder what it was a picture of. Oh, yeah, the cow. Now, can you find the mouse? Because the mouse is going to be in every picture and it's in a different place. There it is. The cow jumping over the moon. And there were 3 little bears sitting in chairs. You know the story about the 3 little bears. Goldilocks. And 2 little kittens and a pair of mittens. Can you find the mittens and the kitten? Can you find the mouse? Right. There it is. And a little toy house and a young mouse. Now, good night, room. Oh, look, the kittens are playing. And can you find the mouse again? There he is in the spotlight. Fire going. So do you think it's cold or hot? Yeah, it's probably warm because of the fire. And do you think it's daylight or night? Right, daylight. How can you tell? That's right, because it has stars and a moon. And the idea is to make them really observant as to pictures, so that when they start reading, they'll understand some of the details in a story. Like the fire keeps the room warm. There's a clock to let you know what time it is. This is Runaway Bunny. It's a picture from Margaret Wise Brown's other book. And must be a child's room because there are toys. And the telephone, kind of old-fashioned. Good night, moon, and good night, cow jumping over the moon. Remember we saw that in another picture, didn't we? And good night, light and red balloon, and good night, bears, and good night, chairs. Can you find the mouse? Oh, where is it now? I know it's here. We'll come back to that.
Maybe do a recap of what you were talking about earlier. Just a couple more books. And then
this is going to be it. Good night, kittens, and good night, mittens. And good night, clocks, and good night, socks. And good night, little house, and good night, mouse. And good night, comb, and good night, brush. The comb and brush are because that's what you have at home. Good night, nobody. And good night, mush. And good night to the old lady whispering, hush, because he's going to sleep. So good night. And remember to find the mouse. And good night, stars, and good night, air. Good night, noises everywhere. And that's the end. And then there's some good records. Hap Palmer is wonderful. We all live together, and he has lots of different records. And then I have a book of finger plays and songs. So we don't have to do those now.
what's the finger play song?
Well, I'll sing one for you. Let's pick one. Do you? Let's see. Johnny, where's the map? How about Where's Thumpkin? Where is Thumpkin? Where is Thumpkin? Here I am, here I am. How are you today, sir? Very well, I thank you. Run away, run away. Where is middleman? And I go up higher so they can see, get the scale. Where is middleman? Where is middleman? And then where is ring finger? So forth. Where is pinky? Where is family? Okay. Of course, a favorite is twinkle, twinkle, little star. And you do this when you're want things to quiet down. You turn down the lights, so that quiets children down, and then twinkle, twinkle, little star. I don't know how much is left on the thing.
Well, you got time.
I'm a little, 3 little monkeys. Oh, this is a good one. Okay, we've got the bed. 3 little monkeys jumping on the bed. One fell off and bumped his head. The mama called the doctor, and the doctor said, no more monkeys jumping on the bed. 2 little monkeys jumping on the bed. One fell off and bumped his head. The mama called the doctor, and the doctor said, no more monkeys jumping on the bed. 1 little monkey jumping.
Some water.
Anyway, they're jumping on the bed. Let's see. Of course, 5 little ducks went out to play over the hill and far away. Mother duck called, quack, quack, quack. 4 little ducks came swimming back. Again, it's the using the numbers. And then there's a wheels on the bus go round and round, round and round, round and round, and the wheels on the bus go round and round all through the town. And the horn on the bus goes beep, 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 and the horn on the bus goes beep, 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 all over town. And the wipers on the bus go swish, 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 swish. The wipers on the bus go swish, 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 all over town. And the mommies on the bus say, I love you, I love you, I love you. And the mommies on the bus say, I love you, all over town. And the daddies on the bus say, I do too, I do too, I do too. And the daddies on the bus say, I do too, all over town.
That's cute.
Yeah, isn't that a good one? If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, then you surely ought to show it. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're sad and you know it, cry your tears. If you're sad and you know it, cry your tears. If you're sad and you know it, then you surely ought to show it. If you're sad and you know it, cry your tears. And if you're angry and you know it, stomp your feet. If you're angry and you know it, stomp your feet. If you're angry and you know it, then you surely ought to show it. If you're angry and you know it, stomp your feet. Woo, woo. Getting those emotions out. Okay. Well, I think that's enough. Are you? Oh, your fur jacket.
River Jack, I remember that one.
I'm a little teapot, short and stout. Here is my handle and here is my spout. When I get all steamed up, then I shout, tip me over and pour me out. These are just wonderful old songs. This old man. Oh yeah. Head and shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes, knees and toes. Head and shoulders, knees and toes. My fair lady. Can't remember the rest of it.
And I'll ask a question.
Okay.
Okay.
Roman
So, I'm in the video now. So as your son, I'd like a 10-minute version of how to raise a 2-year-old for the father on the run who has a short attention span, maybe the the most pertinent points.
The most pertinent
Of dealing with a 2-year-old. Tough question.
Well, I think the father on the run is difficult because he's focused on a lot of different things, and it takes a great deal of patience to work with a 2-year-old. But the most important thing that you want to portray to them is that you love them. And I don't think you can say that enough. I love you. Oh, I just love you so much. A man does it in a different way probably than a woman. So that's one thing. I think verbally telling you love them, a hug when you come home. Oh, I've been waiting all day to see you. It's so important. You know, just these few little words. Show me, did you do a painting in school today? Show me, show me. And that will generate conversation between the child and the father. You know, none of this takes very long. Even if you spend 5 minutes of totally focusing on the child, it goes a long way. Giving him a bath at night so that you can communicate with him in a warm, kind of cozy situation. The water's warm. Reading him a story at night is a wonderful way to connect. Dinner time, I think all families should eat, no matter how rushed it is, and it's difficult because you're going to have things like soccer and baseball and music lessons, and dad's not coming home till late, and it gets complicated. But as many times as you can, I would have dinner, even if you have an early dinner with your child, and a later dinner, like a snack, and a later dinner with your wife. Dads are, I mean, they're essential to children. Modeling is important. Modeling all the values that I've talked about: honesty, kindness, compassion, clear-headedness, and joy. You know, carry a child on your shoulders. It's wonderful. Just think of it. Think of it. They're up high. They're up on the world. They can see everything. They're not down low anymore, where they only see knees all the time. They're up high. Carry them on your shoulders. Let them see the world. Just hold their backs, and they'll feel safe and secure. And fly a kite. Have fun. Blow bubbles. Blow bubbles is wonderful. Run and play with a ball. I think the main thing is to spend as much of a day as you can with your divided time. And that means trying to forget what's going on in the office, which is difficult because you're going to have all sorts of pressures from the office, from your wife, from the other kids, if you have more, and financial. But you somehow have to set that aside and make that child feel absolutely special for a small part of the day. Large part is better, but small part is necessary. And I think the key is you don't ever want to look back and have your child say to you, "Where were you? You were never home."
What advice can you give for couples that are both working, and how to give, in order to cover the income, but then give the child the...
Right, the attention that they need. It's difficult if they both work. What I would suggest is you try and work alternate. Like one goes in early in the morning and while the other one prepares the child for daycare, a bag, with lunch and extra clothes and whatever snuggly they want to take. So one parent is working while the other one takes them to daycare. Then the parent that's working picks up the child at daycare and spends the afternoon with them, as the other parent stays at work. So you try and alternate it so you both have a time either pick up or take to daycare. And it's hard to work 2 8-hours a day because somebody's going to miss out, and it's going to be the child. So if you can possibly do it, one do 6 hours, one do 8 hours, and then maybe shift it. I do think workplaces are much more flexible now because more and more people have to work. And you can make it work, but if at all possible, it's better to stay home. It may mean only one car. It may mean giving something up. And the thing is that they're in school, in 4 years, 5 years, they're in school all day long. So if you can kind of keep your expenses down, because children, they don't remember. If you think of your own childhood, you don't remember the expensive things that happen. You remember the ice cream cone, or the time that you went for a special walk, or the time you found a frog. You know, it's not expensive things that children remember. They remember the attention, and they deserve that. So you have to make it work. Each has to share in some of the household chores. You know, one vacuums one week and the other week. One does bathrooms one week and the other. And the same with cooking. Try and keep it very simple. But it has to be shared responsibilities. I think parenting is probably the hardest job there is, but it's actually, if you want to call it a job, I don't know whether it's called a job or not, but in essence it is. As a matter of fact, I think parents should, stay-at-home parents should get health insurance and Social Security. It boggles my mind that they're the only ones with the most important job in the whole world, raising a generation who is going to be responsible and grown up. Why they don't get Social Security and health benefits. I don't understand it. But in any event, it's crucial that, especially in those first 4 years, or even 5 years, but especially in the first 4 years, that bonding happens and that the trust happens also. Because if it doesn't, there's either always pushing for attention or a lack of trust. Who's going to take care of me? And if you think about it, a child is absolutely defenseless. You know, they don't know their name, they don't know their address, they can't get, I mean, they're defenseless. So they need to be protected. As far as discipline, I think it has to make sense. Spankings I'm against, although I have to say that if a child were running out in the street, I think a spanking is in order. I mean, something that serious, I think a spanking is not a bad idea. But as far as
Have you ever spanked a child?
I haven't.
No,
I haven't, but I think as much as you can, throw it back to the child. Keep the ball in their court. If they do something wrong, you can ask them, well, what would you do? And I've done that. You know, what would you do as a parent? What should I do? You hit your brother, or although I have to say that a family is a microcosm of the world. It's the way the world is, and there is fighting in a family. It's just going to happen, and it's very annoying to adults. They don't like it. I didn't like it, but I think it's the safest place that children can learn how to fight, because they know that a parent is going to step in if it gets beyond what it should be. So that's probably why they fight more in families. As much as possible, if you can stay out, because the problem is that when you come in and you yell, you're always picking on your brother. He's little, and look what you've done. He's now in tears. Of course, the brother is saying, "Oh, God, that's exactly what I want to happen." Now they're mad at my big brother. So, and you have any idea who started it. It may have been the brother poking him. Nobody has any. By the time a parent comes in, the fight's already started, so you don't know what's happened. One thing I would do with boys is have a space for them to roughhouse. We had a hall when our children were growing up. It was padded, just a need. And we also had a basketball, a big one. We had a SMU, or sort of a blown up one, bozo when they were little, and a one that hung from the wall that they did like a boxer to get some of that aggression out, because there is a lot of energy. So discipline, it's hard because every child is different. Some are more sensitive and some aren't. So I don't really have any great wisdom on it, except setting boundaries. Boundaries do need to be kept, because when you get out in the world, there are boundaries. You can't be rude. If you're rude in the adult world, you could be fired. So there is a certain amount of boundaries, such as being polite, being kind, that should be learned, and hopefully in a family.
Do you find that you discipline your first child different than your third or fourth? You know, as you go, you learn
Right.
different things.
Well, Bill said, did you find that you discipline your first different from the third and the fourth? Yes, because I really, you come into parenthood, and I'm a teacher, I'm educated in early childhood. I know it more than probably most people, and yet I knew nothing about being a parent. Because to be a parent is 24 hours a day, and there's no break. So it's every day. So it was really different. So I was learning as I went along. Although I have to be honest, by the time I got to my fifth, it was like, discipline? Oh dear, now what did I couldn't remember what I had done for each child. So I don't think I disciplined a whole lot. Now, maybe that's not so good, because maybe there weren't boundaries set. But I think my expectation was, if I give respect to my children, they should respect what I'm trying to say. And I think generally that happened.
Well, when you discipline, is it as a couple, as a team, is it better to be on the same page and discipline the same, or is it good to have maybe the man be a little more, take one role,
Right.
and the woman,
Take
takes
another.
another role? Or
Well, it's interesting, Bill, because that's what happened in our case. Dad was, much more stern than I was, and then maybe I was a little more promiscuous. So I think as much as you can come together, that is better for the child, because it's got to be confusing. One saying one thing, and what happens is they go to Dad, and he says no, and they go to Mom, and she says yes, and they think, oh, I'm not going to Dad anymore. Why do that? I've caught on to this routine. I mean, kids are very smart, and they'll pick up things very quickly. No, it's important as a couple to talk about how you want to discipline, and the expectations that you want for your children, and how you're going to go about getting it. The more you can be together on it, obviously, the much better for the children. Definitely. Yeah, that's a good question. And it's hard. It takes a lot of talking for couples. They really need to talk out, and they're going to disagree, and they're going to have to bend some. Each person's going to have to bend a little.
What about this? When you were teaching 2-year-olds that were problem child in the class, what was the common denominator? Was it lack of attention by the parent? Was there a common denominator?
What made them a problem?
Yeah, that you found. What was the most common thing that parents were doing wrong, I assume?
It's an excellent question. A really good question. Bill said, what's a common denominator in a 2-year-old that made him sort of misbehave? Is that right? I think the common denominator is lack of peace at home and lack of attention. Nobody was home. Either they worked all the time, or if they were home, they weren't home. in their head. So they weren't paying attention to the child's needs. It's not that you have to pay attention to the child all the time, but you do need to pay attention to their needs. Are they hungry? Are they cold? I mean, I see children coming to school with, you know, short sleeve shirt and no coat. And I'm thinking, where's the parent in this? Now, a child doesn't know to put a coat on, but a parent should. Or on a very hot day, you'll see children with leggings, you know, knee socks and overalls, and it's hot. So you have to be attentive to the child's physical needs, spiritual needs, and emotional needs. And if that happens in a family, each individual child, generally there's not too many discipline problems. You know, a child feels loved, that's probably the key. Mm-hmm. Is that they feel somebody's there for them. Because remember, they don't have any skills. They've only been alive for 2 years. That's not very long. And they don't know how to take care of themselves. They're learning. And that's what growing up is all about, is how do I, you know, another part of taking care of yourself, when a child is hurt, it's very important that you stop and acknowledge the hurt. Where are you hurting? Oh, your knee. Well, let's rub your knee. Have you ever rubbed a knee that you skinned or a hand and it feels better? Because that knee is getting the attention and the respect that a body deserves. And I think the lesson later on is when you're an adult and have something wrong, you acknowledge it and you do something about it. Often adults ignore things until it's too late because I don't think they really have learned to respect the body. So children have to learn it's okay to cry about a skinned knee, it's okay to put a Band-Aid on to protect the knee, to keep it clean. Not a big deal, but definitely acknowledgement of how something hurts and how you have empathy. So they're learning to respect their body, not only as a child but later, and also an emotion. It's sad when you're hurt. And it goes with eating also, that they need, you know, again, eating healthy food is again a respect for the body. You don't tell a 2-year-old, you know, you're going to respect your body by eating the carrots. But you grow carrots in the garden and you say, let's go pick the carrots out of the garden. And they get to see a root and how it's grown from a little seed. And then you cut it up and you cook it and look at the whole experience. It's a beautiful experience that things come from the earth and they learn to take care of. Just like if you have animals. They have to be fed and watered every day and their cages or whatever changed. And it's again respect for and caring for an animal. If they see you do it, then they will do it as they grow up too. Chores is another thing that's really important. I think a child should have chores so they feel a part of the household. And when you do chores, you get an allowance. That's kind of the way the world works. When you go out in the working world, if you do something, you get a promotion or you get paid. So again, it's the base for getting ready for the outside world. Chores are really, you can have charts with stars. I used to do that, just have, 5 stars. Children love stars. And then maybe after 5 stars, they get to go down to the candy store and buy $1 worth of candy. I never did it with grades. And I purposely didn't give rewards for grades because I always trusted that the children would try as hard as they could. And I just decided to let that go, that they would get their own rewards inside themselves. Although I had one child say, God, everybody else gets rewards and money, why can't we?
What do you think about private versus public kindergartens?
Or are they all private?
No, they're public and private. They're both public and private. There are advantages to both. Public school, if it's a neighborhood school, is wonderful because the children start in kindergarten. You get to know the parents, and they work their way all the way through grade school, which means they go to baseball and soccer and dancing, dance, whatever, you know, if a little girl takes that, or drama. So they do things in the community as a whole with that school, and they, each place they go, they know enough children so they feel pretty comfortable. Generally, the teachers are paid more in public school also. And you also have more grades. Often there'll be two first grades, 2 second grades. And that's the other thing, if you can, make sure that they have good kindergarten, first, second, and third grade. Those 4 grades, because a child needs a good start. And some teachers are better than others.
How do you find good teachers, though? How would you know?
Well, ask parents. Ask other parents that have had kids in those grades. They'll tell you. They're the best guide. The other thing that you can do that I always did is work in the library. Because the library is usually central in a school, and you meet all the teachers. They come in to get books. And you see how they interact with the children. Are they kind? Are they compassionate? Are they clear? You know, do they keep order? I mean, all those things that you look for, you're right there, and yet you're not staring down their throats looking in their classroom. You know, you're busy doing other things. Plus, you meet all the children that your children go to school with. So you know them by name, and that helps too. Private school can be good. The classes can be smaller, depending upon, you know, what year it is. And you often have extra art, science, extra activities. But the only problem with private school is often it's isolated, so the children aren't playing, you know, they're not in the same class with their soccer people or their karate people or the activities that they do after school. So they may not feel as comfortable. Now, charter schools are starting, which is kind of interesting. And those are schools that are sort of private, public run. Parochial schools do a pretty good job too. But I think too many children in a class is difficult. And when you go into a classroom, just observe. Bring yourself back to being a child. Would it be fun? Is this a fun place? Are there pictures around? Is it colorful? Is it a happy atmosphere? Is there a fish over there to feed? Is there a guinea pig in the corner? If it's kindergarten, is there blocks, play clothes, you know, look around and say, would I have fun if I were a child? And if you say, oh God, I'd love to be here. If you say, God, this looks kind of dreary. You know, so I tell parents, trust your instinct. Trust your gut feeling. It's always right. What does your stomach say about this? And you trust your children. They'll tell you if something's not quite right. And it depends upon your school district too. You have to try and pick a home that has good school district. But parochial school amazingly does a pretty good job. And they don't get into religion in the early grades too much. And they have uniforms, which is not a bad idea either. The other thing about school that bothers me a lot, is I feel that schools should have therapists on the playground and pay them. Because the playground is where social skills develop. So what you have is you have a child that's maybe in nursery school 2, 3, 4, right? That's only 3 years. If they're lucky. Some don't start at 2, some start at 3. So they really haven't gotten the skills down to cope with the bully or the child that is shy or reserved, as we call them. The child is having a hard time with speech, may stutter, child that may be physically disabled, a child that just can't fit in and wants to so badly. And if you had people trained on the playground during recess and during lunch, teachers shouldn't do it because they need a break desperately. And there's plenty of social workers that part-time that could do this. I think you would not have the problems that you have in discipline later on. Because what they would be learning is as important as subjects. It's as important as math to learn how to get along with a group of people so that you don't belong to gangs or, you know, losing jobs. You understand society's sort of unwritten rules or written rules and boundaries. But there's some things you can't do. But in a playground, kids get away with it because the bully dominates, and the child that doesn't have those skills is the victim. So you've got the victims and the bullies, and it just perpetuates. Okay, I've done a book called the Getty Experience, and the Getty Experience is not something I named. It's what my parents named, and they said, "Have you ever had the Getty Experience?" So I got a kick out of it. So anyway, I decided to make a book of my program and all the different things that we did. And it just, it brings back so many wonderful memories. It really does. A lot of working with young children is watching. You know, I was in Europe and I took a picture of, I was behind these two little children. They were probably 3 years old, a boy and a girl. And I got the biggest kick out of them. The mom was sort of ahead of them, and they were in the back, and they were chatting back and forth, back and forth. And then they kind of stopped and looked at each other with a puzzled look. I couldn't hear what they were saying, and it was in French anyway. And then all of a sudden, I saw the two of them holding hands. These two little boy and a girl had said something that was full of love because they held hands and walked down the street behind the mother. And if you watch in a playground, often children don't say too much sometimes. Another time I was in Paris, and there was the most wonderful, in the playground, there was, in the sandbox, there was a wheel that went around like this with a funnel. And they would take the sand and put it down the funnel, which went down the wheel, which went down below. And they did this for hours. They just put the sand, watch it. They knew what was going to happen. But it was almost like solidifying it in their minds. And each time they put the sand in and watched it go down the wheel, they just laughed. It was like, oh, I know what's going to happen. This is so much fun. And they must have been 3 years old. And they spent a long time. I guess it's like working a math problem or reading a good book. Through play, through the wonderful plays that children do, and it doesn't take too much, kicking a ball, blowing bubbles, that's how they learn. It's visual, they get to practice the skills, and it's pretty incredible to sit in a playground and watch small children and how they deal with life. I often said to my staff, if the UN could see how these children share and choose not to be victims and not to be bullies and share space, we just wouldn't have any problems. um, let's see, in this book, how much time is left?
10 minutes?
About 10 minutes.
5 minutes.
Okay. Well, at the beginning, I talked quite a bit about sort of the philosophy, and I'm just going to take a few minutes and go over the program that I had. A child comes, we've opened the door, the child comes in, gets his name tag, and we greet them. Now, there are children that are more reserved, and those children, I don't look in the eye. If you've ever gone up to a dog and looked them in the eye, they get nervous sometimes. Well, it's the same with children. A horse does the same thing. You don't want to look a horse in the eye necessarily. So I kind of look off to the side and say, well, hi, how are you, Jenny? Oh, I'm so glad you're here. Let's see if we can find your name tag. And it gives them a chance to orient away from the mother to a new environment. Then we get the name tag. I think I went over some of this and put the fruit in the bag, put the name tag on, get their coat off. All this takes time. So they have, you know, and I very slowly, do everything slowly. As children come in, they each go through a different part, but it helps them adjust to the shift from home, where they're comfortable, to school, where it's work. It's a lot of work to have to get along with other children. It's not as comfortable as home. So there's a lot of sharing that goes on at the door. Then it's free time, and that's when we interact with the children. There's free time for about a half an hour. I keep them inside because if we open the door, they'd go out and never do the fun things we have inside. So we have stations that are already set up: art, Play-Doh, blocks, water. Always water. Water's fabulous for children. You roll up their sleeves and let them dig in. And the doll corner and dress up. And at the again, at these tables, if they're doing art, it's conversation. You can chat about it. You can do it yourself. Draw your own pictures. Again, the modeling. Then we have a cozy corner where they can be quiet, where stories are read, or they can just. Should I show the pictures?
What's some examples?
Okay, this is the this is the cozy corner where we have books and nice fluffy pillows and blankets. And over here is art. We're working on stamping and Play-Doh, writing their names on, and they take their work all home. This is I'm modeling a tea service. And this is a road, and we're playing with planes and trucks. This is, of course, trust. Children come in and they're greeted. I'm kind of going backwards a little here, and this is all the greeting part of the morning. And then over here, let's see, what do we have here? Oh, this is in the doll corner. Now here I'm helping down below, I'm helping at their level a problem that's going on. This one of the children wants to be in the train, and somebody didn't want him in the train, so we worked that out. Again, look at my arms, very open. You want to keep your body language very open, open to suggestions, open to both sides. Often when I read a story and a child wants to sit between my legs, again, they're open. So body language is really important. See, they've got incorporated hats in here and tickets. We have tickets. So there's a lot of talking. Where are we going? What's going to happen next? You know, all the beginning part of readiness. And here, we're still working out the problem. This is outside. Now, this child has gotten wet, so we have extra clothes so that she can be comfortable. Because it's really important for children to be comfortable. If they want to go without their shoes, I make sure that the playground has no, sharp things, and because it's so much fun to be in the sand without shoes, so we take their shoes off and put them in a bin, and they have to put them where they can find them again. And the swings come later because that's an activity I want them to learn, so they have to be a little older. And let's see what this is. Oh, this is Legos and block building. I usually have an animal. We have fish that they feed, water play, flannel board with different things, a tea party. But you see how focused they are. It's quite quiet in there. And it's not because of lack of activity. It's just they are really focused on what they're doing. Sometimes if it gets sort of really, really rowdy and some children are disturbed, I'll turn down the lights, turn them off actually, and put on a little music. It's amazing what it does. Quiets them right down. And there's the train. And here are the fish. They open their hand and we put a little bit of fish food in. They put it in. So that's taking care of, the planet, which we want. There's the sandbox. Oh, this is wonderful. This is Dad's Day. And I have this a couple days a year because I want dads to know what their children are doing. Because if a child comes home and says, we sang this song that Dad said, yeah, I know that song, let's sing it together. Or a finger play, or an art project. They know the routine of the child. It's really, really important, and I make the dads feel really welcome. And by the end, they're all talking about blowing leaves in the yard and how they have to clean up the pool or whatever, or business. But they bond. The fathers all bond. See, they're all right here with their children. They're chatting away here, working with their children. Their children get to see them modeling. They're reading to their children. Oh, it's one of my favorite times. It's wonderful. Having snack. This is outside. This is again talking to parents, making sure that parents have their questions answered, and they stay. They can stay all year because they learn a lot. They learn about how, positive ways of handling certain situations. And large play equipment with a teacher close by to help them, encourage them if they're having trouble. A tunnel, a place to hide. It's really important that children have a place to hide, so there's a little tunnel in there. And two children can go down, so they can hold hands, because isn't that part of making friends? I purposely had two. Everything has a reason. Everything is thought out, not just by me, but by other people too. I'm here, he's wanting something in the music, so I'm listening, eye to eye, really paying attention, see? And then he wanted a special song, which we put on. So his needs were met, because that's what we're there for. And this is the end of the day where we're singing finger plays. The moms are back with the children. Moms are nestled in with the children. Siblings are there. They come right in. Usually I've had them so they know the routine because it's the same as when they were there. It's always, the same. And this is me. And this is saying goodbye at the end of the day. This is Bing Nursery School, which is, and these are all the classes, the children that I've had.
That shirt, the pal shirt.
Oh yeah. And this is a wonderful. It's called The Magic of Bing. Here's an article that was written about me, but the magic of Bing Nursery School is at Stanford, and I was the head teacher there. It is the most wonderful story about the magic of children written by a Stanford student named Susan Frank. Oh yeah. And this is Bill's shirt when he went to kindergarten. And the reason that I gave him this is because he looked at me and he said in a positive voice, he said, well, I'm going off to meet all my friends. And isn't that wonderful? He just assumed he had and he did. He had a lot of friends. So I went out and bought him a pal shirt, and this is what he wore to kindergarten. And he has a lot of friends. It's stuck. It's cute, isn't it? So, let's see. Here's another book that somebody made for me too. This is about Bing, which is another wonderful experience. Another thing that's important is to make sure that the equipment is in good shape. You know, the pieces are all there, because again, it's respect for children. Puzzle pieces are there. We have to keep track of, and things are painted, trucks are painted and repaired. The room is clean. We clean it twice a year, thoroughly, you know, really scrub things down. So it's wonderful. I love it. I love little children. Now I'm working with dogs. I work at the SPCA in off-site adoption.
30 seconds.
So, well, thank you very much, Bill. Bill has provided he's generated the interest by providing the camera, teaching me how to use it, and just generally being there to encourage me. And I probably wouldn't have done this if it weren't for him. So, thanks, honey. And I love you.
I love you too.
Mm-hmm.